Hey everyone, CKY here again today, looking to do another walkthrough, this time on the platform TryHackMe and the challenge HackPark. There's potentially a couple of different ways you can look at doing this challenge, and I may highlight them. However, just so you know, the method I'm going to focus on is so that you can answer all the questions within the challenge here. Now, although I'm going to be using the site, etc., I'm not going to put the questions up on the screen to give you all the answers. It would be good for you to go through this process. So, without further ado, let's get cracking with the challenge. So the first thing we'll do is our enumeration. We'll look to launch our initial scan. I'm just going to do a basic scan here on limited number of ports just for the challenge, but as always I would recommend, if you're doing these challenges, a wider range of ports. I have also put the -pn fix in there just to disable host discovery. This is a Windows machine that we're targeting and it won't respond to pings as highlighted by the site itself. And here we have our results, and we can see that port 80 is open and port 3389. Port 3389 is actually a remote desktop protocol port, which can be used in this challenge, but we won't be doing it, but I will put a hint into that. Normally when I see port 80 open, the first thing that I will actually do is open up a web browser and browse to see what's actually there. So let's go ahead and do that. So when the site appears here, we can see we've got the picture of the clown. And the first challenge is actually to identify the name of the clown on the home page. Now to do that, what you would do is you would just save a copy of the photograph here. Then I would then look to go to images.google.com, upload that photo and see what the results bring. So go into our browser here, images.google.com, click on the camera, upload an image, and then you would basically just browse, select the file, upload it. Again, I'm not going to do that and give away the answer for you, but you go ahead and do that just now. So from here, we'll close the window. We'll go back to our initial home page here, and we'll look to attempt to log into the site. So we'll click on the drop down and select the login option. Okay, now just before we log in here, one of the questions does ask us what type of request is being used on the login form. So, I need you to press F12 to bring up the network console down at the bottom. Now you can put any username you like, that doesn't matter. You can also use any password, but I would recommend that you don't use password. This isn't for a security thing, it's to make it easier when creating the Hydra syntax, but I will explain that. So put any password in there you like, hit return, and we will get our results. So right at the top here, down in our network console, there's the answer to the question. It tells you there what type of request it is, and that is a post request. We can also see there's a login failed message up here, which is what you would expect, but this is a crucial piece of information that we use to build the Hydra syntax for brute forcing the site, so take a note of that as well. And now basically what we're going to do is we're going to now construct our Hydra syntax, which I'm going to guide you through because I don't think this was necessarily clear in the challenge itself. So let's build this out. We'll do a Hydra-L, username admin. For the password list, we're just going to use rocku.txt. We then put the IP address of our target machine. And then we append the http-post-form switch. Now after this, you'll find that Hydra needs 3 pieces of information. Okay, it needs the login page separated by a colon, the request body, colon, error message. Those are the 3 pieces of information it needs. Now I'm just writing it out here to show you how we're going to construct this, and now I'm going to show you how we go about obtaining each of these pieces of information. So Go back to our post request, right click and hit edit and resend. And on the right hand side you'll see a new request screen, and we're going to look at the URL and take the data after the first /, okay? Make sure you include the / though, okay? So we've copied that. I'll take out login page. This is how I'm going to build this out to make it clear. Paste that in there. So that's the first part we've got. We've got the login, okay? The next part we're going to require here is the request body. So if you scroll down, you'll find a box called request body, and we need everything that's in this box. So scroll right to the end until it stops. There we go. Take a copy of that. And let's go back into our Hydra Syntax. We'll move the request body there. And we'll paste in our details. Now this is why I didn't want you to use the password. As I say, it's just to make it a bit simpler. You can see there's a variable called password. Now because I use random, we know exactly what it is we're taking out there. So whatever password you put in, take it out. And we're going to replace that with a caret symbol and an uppercase pass and a caret symbol to close. We then find the username and we do the same for that. In my case it was test. So we'll do a caret symbol, user, caret symbol, uppercase again. And that's the second part of information that Hydra requires. And the last part is the error message. This is very straightforward. It's at the top of the screen there, login failed. We simply go back and we'll take our error message and we'll put login failed in there. And this is the same principle that you would use on any HTTP post forum. So it's very good to have this in your toolkit, and we'll just wait for the results now. Okay, so Hydra has managed to crack this password. So we now have a valid administrator login with which to proceed. So that's fantastic. So I'll just clear my screen here, and now what we'll look to do is switch back over to the victim machine, and we can then proceed. You can press F12 to get rid of the console there, and we'll now proceed to go into the admin login. And one of the first questions we're asked here is, what version is the blog site running on? So if you go to the About post, we will then see version listed there. And from there, what we're then going to do is we're then going to see if we can find an exploit. Now, my approach here is that I'm simply going to launch Searchsploit and see what I can find by just simply doing 3.3.6. As we can see, there's a number of exploits listed here. I'm just going to take the first one in this instance. I'm going to run Searchsploit again with a -w so that it gives me the web link, just to save me searching. It didn't give me the open link there. We'll try that again. There we go. So we'll open link there, and that takes us straight into the exploit itself. Now the CVE number is listed there because that, I believe, is also one of the questions, so we can answer that one too. Scrolling down here, we'll try and get some details on this particular exploit. So here it says we need to set the TCP client address, our attack box, and also the port. There's also, it's stated here that the file name must be postview.ascx, something important to bear in mind. So what I would then look to do is take a copy of this exploit into my local directory so that we can amend it for the task in hand. So I'm going to take the file name here and copy that. I'm going to use the locate command. There we go. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this path, I'll just copy the path in its entirety. And And then we can just use this, put the path in there and copy it to our local directory. Now you'll remember that I did say there is a specific file name, postview.ascx. So let's just use that just now to save us renaming it later. We'll apply that to our syntax here. And if we do an ls, we can see that we now have a local copy in this folder of the exploit with the correct file name. Now let's use Nano or any editor to go in there and take a look at our script here. Now this part here that I'm highlighting, this is how we execute the script. So I'm going to take a copy of that. And then I'm going to make the amendments to the part that we need. Now all we need to do is reflect our attack box here. So this is our machine. So I'm going to put my IP address in here. You will put your IP address in there. I'm going to leave the port as default 4445. We'll now save the file. And now we'll be ready to start our netcat listener on our machine. And once we've started our listener, we will then be able to go back to the blog site and then upload the script. Bearing in mind that I did copy the launch syntax to the clipboard earlier. So we'll go into the dashboard. We'll go into the post. There's only one there. Click on the folder icon for the file manager. And then you'll see an upload button. Click the upload button. And then browse to the directory where you have stored your postview.ascx. We've got a completed message there. So we can hit the cross. Remember and click the save button. And then if we just open another window and paste in our launch syntax, remembering to change the IP address to the victim machine. So I'm just going to change this here to 106.195. And when we hit return there, we can see the little icon moving on the tab. So we'll just minimize that window, go back to our terminal, and as we can see, we've caught the reverse shell. We can do a who am I, and that will reveal which user we're currently logged in as, and that is also one of the questions that we are asked in the challenge. Now I'm also going to look to run system info, as there are another couple of questions that can be answered by using this command. We have the operating system version, which if I scroll up here, we can determine right there. We'll highlight it there. Another question that was asked is also what the installation date was, which we can also pick up from here. So going back to my terminal here, I am going to split my terminal just to make it easier to operate. I'll need to change my working directory to my local HackPark directory that I'm using to keep my files, just as I like to be organized that way. So our next step is going to be to create our reverse shell payload. Now, as I've said, I'm not going to be using Metasploit for this, so I'm just going to create a standard reverse shell here. So we'll use MSF Venom -P for payload. We'll do Windows/x86 because we can tell from the system info that it's a 64-bit platform. /shell_reverse_TCP. -F for the format as an executable. lhost, you'll put your local host IP address. Local port, I'm just putting 4444. And finally, we'll do a -O and we'll give it the file name, and I'm just going to call it revshell.exe. And we've now created our reverse shell executable, and it's in the directory there. Perfect. Now before we look to copy it across, there's another file that we're going to need for this exercise. We did mention that we're going to use some privesc scripts, so I'm going to do a search for winpeas.bat. And here we'll have the results here, so we can click on this one here. This takes us straight into the correct link. We can click on raw or however you normally download it, but I'm going to take the link from raw, copy that, and just use a straight wget command and the copied syntax. And that will then download our winpeas.bat file. Do an ls to make sure it's there. And there we go. Now we're ready to start copying files across to our victim machine. In order to do that, I'm going to set up an HTTP server. We'll use the Python 3 module, http.server. So it's Python 3-m http.server. And then we'll put a port number in there. I'm just going to use port 80. And switching over to our reverse shell. Firstly, I'm going to look to move to a writable directory. So, I'm going to do a cdc:/Windows temp. And then from there, we're going to use the certutil command in order to copy our files across. It's basically certutil-url cache-f, then the URL and file name, and then we do a space, and then we give it a local file name as well. I'm just going to call it revshell.exe. Hit return, and as we can see, completed successfully. Now we'll use the same command again, except a slight alteration this time. We're just going to change the file name to certutil with our -url cache-f, then the URL, and we'll change the file name to winpeas.bat. And as we can see, that was also successful. Perfect. So what I'm now going to do is move back across to our other terminal screen, kill the web server, and set up our reverse listener. This time we're on port 4444. Hit return, start the listener, and from there we move back across to our other terminal window, and we just simply launch revshell.exe. And when we hit return, we should see it caught on the right hand side, as we do. Now we'll move across to our new shell, and we will look to execute winpeas.bat. So we'll hit return there, and the script executes. Oh, and it's actually terminated the shell. Now, not a disaster. I'm going to show you how to get this back. Interestingly enough, it's actually given us the bit of crucial information that we do need for the way that we're going to tackle this challenge. However, let me show you how to actually get the shell back, because this does happen and WinPeas can get in a loop, so it's handy to know. So what we're going to do is here, we're simply going to start our listener again and just simply launch our revshell.exe from the original shell that we gained. Type it in, and as you can see, back in the right hand side, we have regained our reverse shell. So let's launch winpeas.bat again. Here we go, we are getting more success this time, which is good. So the script is actually still running, but firstly what I can see is the crucial piece of information we need. We can see this wservice.exe executable, which has inherited and modify permissions. So what I'm then going to look to do is I'm going to do a search on this wservice.exe to see if there is any known exploits. So we do a search there, wservice.exe exploit. And as we can see, the first result we've got here, there is something in the exploit database for this. So let's have a look at some of the details on this exploit here. We can see that there is something called the system scheduler service. We've got the program files location, which is fantastic. And looking at the details here, it does say by default that everyone group has modified permissions to the system schedule files as shown below. Now this is very good. This means that we've got modified permissions to files in the OS that we wouldn't ordinarily have. So let's look to see how we can exploit this. Now returning to our shell here, we can actually see the script has finished and you can see a default username and password stored in the registry. So it's the administrator username and password. Now as I said at the outset, that could be used to gain RDP access. We're not going to use that way, but you can go back after this and look to use that information in an RDP session. Now, this WinP script can sometimes get stuck in a loop, so what I've done is I've terminated the shell session with a Control-C, and all we're going to do is what we've done earlier, sorry, typo there, clear the terminal, and I'm going to start the netcat session again. Then we'll move across to our original shell and launch revshell.exe again. And then we've caught it back in the right hand side. So let's move back across. You can use separate terminal windows for this on different screens. You don't have to use a split screen. So what we're going to do now is we're then going to navigate to the program files directory that we found before, where we know the system scheduler is located. So let's do a dir command, and within there we can see system scheduler. So let's move into there. And from there we can look to list the directory contents, and as we can see, wservice.exe is listed there as per the exploit. Now what I'm about to start doing is enumerating the services by using task list. Now the reason I'm doing this is when I first done this challenge I was obsessed with wservice.exe, and that was a mistake. You may recall the exploit says that we've got elevated privileges to a number of files within that directory, and it's not wservice that we're actually looking to exploit. So what I did when I was trying to figure this out, I kept enumerating these services to see if I could find something that was on a schedule. And as you can see, I'm listing the services just now, and the fourth time I've done this, I see message.exe appearing. Now this is actually part of the system scheduler suite, and we do have elevated privileges to this, and this is the file that we're looking to compromise. So basically what we're going to do is we're going to rename message.exe to something else. I'm going to use message.back. And what we're then going to do is replace this binary with one of our own. We'll call it message.exe, as we know that this runs with elevated privileges. So simply, I'm going to use the shell that we've already created and uploaded to C:\Windows temp. So I'm going to launch the copy command here, C:\Windows temp. We've got revshell.exe. And we put the file name after it. We want to call it message.exe because we know that's what's on the schedule and that's what's going to execute. So as we can see, we've now copied that file from Windows temp into our current directory and system scheduler. We've called it message.exe. I've then exited the shell, okay? I've Control-C'd, I've came out. I'm going to start the netcat listener again on the same port because that's what we specified it as. And we're simply going to wait until our message.exe, which is actually the payload we created in MSF Venom, to execute. And when this executes, we should catch our shell. And there we go. The scheduler service has obviously kicked off, and we've caught our shell. I'm now going to do echo with the variable username. And as we can see, we've got administrator access now. So that's us compromise this machine without the use of Metasploit, and we will now have permissions to go ahead and complete the challenges. So I will browse into these directories just to show you that we do in fact have the correct permissions. I'm not going to show you the contents of the files. I would like you to go through this process and do that for yourself. As we can see in the folder Jeff there's user.txt, and to see the contents we would simply do the command type user.txt. I'm now going to browse into the administrator folder to prove that we have access to that folder as well. We'll go into the desktop folder, that's where they're normally located, list the contents, and there's root.txt. Again, to see the contents here, type root.txt and that will show you the contents. And that's the challenge completed. I would like to take this opportunity to thank you for viewing the video. I've only got a few videos just now, so I'm a bit young to have subscribers, but if you wouldn't mind, I would appreciate a like if you found any of this useful, or any comments would be greatly appreciated. Thank you for your time.